Hey guys, YouTuber 100 here. Alright, and now continuing my countdown of reviews for my picks for the top 10 best live action Disney movies. Now here I am with my review of number 7, which is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So, yeah, this is a pretty good movie too. I mean, yeah, this is probably one of the live action Disney movies, and especially like one of the ones I have on this list. This is probably one that one of the ones that I really did watch a lot as a kid. I mean, yeah, I really did watch this movie a lot growing up, and yeah, I really did like it. And even today, I mean, I really do still like it. I mean, I've always like really enjoyed this film. I mean, yeah, it really does have a really good story, and it's a very interesting plot to it. Yeah, yeah, I've watched Nostalgia Critic's Disney Summer review for this movie, and yeah, he has said, like, at the time, like, the critics were kind of hard on this movie at the time, just because, like, this film was kind of looked at as kind of like being too scary and too intense for kids. And, I mean, yeah, in a way it is, because, I mean, there are some scenes that are not kind of intense for young kids to watch, but I mean, I do think that the kids still can take it. I mean, because I mean, yeah, this film really was a huge hit at the time, and even now it still pretty much is. I mean, yeah, it just really was a really big hit, and yeah, like Nostalgia Critic said, I really think that the critics really underestimate how much kids can take, because I mean, kids really did love this movie. Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, like, this movie really did make a lot of money. I mean, it's, like, grossed, like, over $200 million. So, yeah, really was a really big hit at the time. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, it's just a really enjoyable movie. I mean, I really, yeah, it has some really good effects in it. And yeah, Nostalgia Critic has kind of said, like, in his summer review, this movie kind of falls into the wouldn't it be neat category because, yeah, of course, like, the kids get shrunken and, like, they journey through the backyard. And yeah, you're pretty much, as you're watching this, you're kind of, like, just thinking, wouldn't it be neat if you were there and stuff? So yeah, it does kind of fall into that category, but still, it is a really entertaining, enjoyable film. I mean, it has a pretty good cast. I mean, of course, it has Rick Moranis as Wayne Selinsky, and of course, like Marcia Strassman, Matt Frewer, Christine Sutherland. Yeah, they're all pretty good. And yeah, the kids are like, I guess, just fine. I mean, yeah, the kids aren't like anything like really outstanding or anything, but they're fine. Yeah. So yeah, the cast is pretty good, and yeah, really good effects in this movie, and yeah, of course, like really good music from James Horner. Yeah, I mean, this was like I was talking about in my composer's video. I mean, James Horner, I really just think it's really like wrong at how overlooked he gets, and really people don't talk about him. And yeah, he does compose really great music, and yeah, it's shown in this film. Yeah, and this film is under the direction of Joe Johnston, and yeah, he was also like the director for movies like The Rocketeer, Jumanji, First Avenger. So yeah, Joe Johnston, yeah, he does have like he has directed some pretty good films, and yeah, this falls into that category. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really good direction from him. Yeah, and yeah, like I was talking about before, there are some scenes that can be kind of intense. I mean, remember when I was a kid and I was watching this, there were really like two scenes in this movie that really were kind of intense for me, and where I was kind of like a little like shaken up watching, and that was like the scene with the bee, and also like the anti-scorpion fight in this movie. I mean, yeah, those were like the two scenes that really did kind of like shake me up when I was a little kid, but I could still like take them just fine. And so yeah, but yeah, even like there are some other like scenes in this movie that could kind of be like intense for younger kids, but yeah, it's nothing like really brutal or bloody or anything. It's just like kind of intense. So yeah, intense scenes, but still like it's handleable for kids. And yeah, it is still like a pretty good movie once again. Yeah, this is yeah. I should also say like this is actually I've actually been wanting to review this movie for a while now, and so yeah, and as well as its sequels too, because I mean, I these were just like movies I watched a lot as a kid, and yeah, I really have kind of wanted to look over these for a little while, and so I'm glad that since I'm doing this countdown, I can finally talk about this film. Yeah, it's just yeah, I really have always liked this movie, and yeah, it is just a really good movie. I would give this movie 3.5 stars out of 4. Once again, just yeah, I really do enjoy this movie a lot. So yeah, let me just get right into it. Alright, so this movie opens up with like an animated sequence during the opening credits and stuff, just showing like shenanigans and commotions going on with the kid Shrunken and stuff, yeah. And then once the movie like officially starts, like it's showing that Wayne is like working on his shrinking machine up in the attic, and yeah, this movie like it opens like with it like it explains how like Wayne and his wife Diane like got into an argument the previous night or something, and then like Diane spent the night at her mother's, and yeah, like the kids, Amy and Nick, they're like kind of like concerned, thinking like the parents are gonna split or something, or just like their family's falling apart or something. Yeah, this is just like a small thing that goes on throughout the movie. It's not like the main focus of it, but yeah, this is just something that like keeps coming up at a few points in this movie. So yeah, it's just like there's that all going on and stuff. Yeah, and apparently like Wayne, like working on his shrink machine, can be heard from the next door neighbor's house, the Thompsons, and it actually wakes up like Big Russ, and like yeah, the Thompsons and Zelinski's like when this movie is like starting, they really are not like really best of friends or anything. Like they really don't like each other very much and stuff. Yeah, and like the Thompsons are like packing up to go on a fishing trip for the weekend, and yeah, Big Russ is trying to like talk to his oldest son, Little Russ Thompson, and yeah, he's like trying to like his bond with Little Russ, but Little Russ really just not isn't really interested because yeah, he just doesn't have the same hobbies as his dad and stuff. But yeah, the younger son Ron, he is like trying to like adapt, and yeah, he really is like he is more enthusiastic about it and kind of wants to have the same sort of hobbies as his dad and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and that morning, like Wayne had like a conference at like a science lab or something to talk about his shrink machine. And then as he was leaving, he just asked Nick and Amy to just clean up the house for when Diane comes home later on that afternoon. But yeah, it just showed like Diane was only gone for one night, and it showed like the house was like kind of messy. I mean, like when they had their argument, did they like get in a fight or something and toss stuff around? Yeah, I don't know. But then yeah, and Wayne asked Nick to mow the lawn, and then Nick then just wanted to ask his friend Tommy to mow the lawn for him, and he showed to Tommy that their lawnmower is basically kind of like a remote control car style thing. And yeah, Tommy then like wanted to do it, but he was unable to do it at the time and just asked to do it later. And Nick agreed as long as Tommy wasn't too late and stuff. And then like later on, it like showed that little Russ kind of like had interest in like meeting Amy because he's really interested in her, and it was shown like he was kind of watching her dance through the window and stuff. But yeah, like Big Russ was just trying to get him to like lift weights and stuff as a hobby instead, and yeah, basically just told him that he was gonna come fishing with the family and stuff. Yeah. And then like later on, as like Ron was like trying to play baseball, he ended up like hitting a baseball, and the ball just ended up crashing through the attic window. Well, and yeah, I should also say, like, as Wayne was like working on his shrink machine, he tried to test it out on like an apple earlier on, but like when he tried to shrink it, the apple just kept exploding, and it would later like be revealed that the reason like it was exploding instead of shrinking was because the laser path of the machine just like ended up like just producing too much heat and causing things to blow up and stuff. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. And Ron, and like as I said, he hit a baseball through the Selinsky's attic window, and then the ball just ended up like activating the machine and getting in the path of the laser. And then like little Russ then saw what Ron did, and then he just brought the Ron over to the Selinsky house to tell them what happened. And then Nick then took Ron up to the attic to get the ball back, and they saw the machine was on, and then it was then showed like the machine was like shrinking some of Wayne's furniture that he had up in the attic. And then like as Ron and Nick went up to the attic, then they got in the path of the beam, and then yeah, the machine then struck them and shrunk Nick and Ron too. Yeah, and then it would show like at Wayne's conference, like everybody was just kind of laughing at Wayne and leaving because they really didn't believe what he was saying. Because Wayne really didn't have any proof, and everybody just ended up like leaving. And then Amy and Russ then went up to check on Nick and Ron, and then they ended up like getting struck by the machine too and shrunk. Yeah. Yeah, and then as Wayne arrived back home, like their dog Cork was trying to lure Wayne upstairs to the attic to see what happened. But then, like, as Wayne was coming up the stairs, like the machine just ended up like tilting up and knocking the baseball down, and just ended up turning the machine off. And then, yeah, Amy, Nick, Ron, and Russ like tried to yell at Wayne to get his attention, but they were just so small that Wayne couldn't hear them at all. And then Wayne saw the broken window, and then just because Wayne was just so frustrated with his day, Wayne just then ended up like beating the machine and just like damaging it, and parts went everywhere. And then Wayne just then ended up like just sweeping up all the parts along with the kids with it too. And then he just put like then just dropped everything into the garbage bag and just took it out to side in the backyard, yeah. And eventually then the kids got out of the bag, and then they saw like where they were. They were in the backyard, and at their size it just seemed like a real jungle to them. And then like Nick eventually like calculated that at their size they would have to travel like over 3 miles to get back home. And then eventually Diane arrived back home, and then yeah, they just noticed that Nick and Amy were gone. And then Diane just felt that they were just at the mall. Yeah. And then yeah, then later on, like Diane just decided to go look for the kids at the mall. And meanwhile, like the kids, as they were journeying through the yard, they then had the idea of to call Cork to carry them back to the house. And then they whistled for Cork, and of course, because of dog's good hearing, Cork could hear them. And then Cork went out, but then Cork just ended up like being chased away by the Thompsons' cat. And then Nick just ended up then falling into a pollen flower. And then both like the Thompsons and the Selinskys then like learned that they're along with their kids, like the other one's kids were missing too. Yeah. And then it's like in the flower, then just showed a swarm of bees then flying around, and then one bee then like went like to the flower Nick was in, and then just like picked up Nick out of the flower, and then Russ then like just jumped onto the bee to try to help Nick, and then the bee just flew around when it took off and stuff. And then eventually like the bee was then like flying like around Wayne, and then Wayne grabbed Ron's baseball bat, but Wayne didn't realize at first, and then was just swatting at the bee, and then eventually struck the bee, and then the bee just ended up just then crash land, yeah, and of course caused Nick and Russ to fall. And then Wayne then realized that the bat wasn't Nick, since Nick didn't play baseball. And then Wayne went back up to the attic, and then he then found the baseball up there, and then he also saw his shrunken furniture, and then that's when he realized that his machine did work. And then he also realized that the kids ended up getting shrunk also. Then he was just trying to search the attic floor for them, but then when he saw the broom, he realized what he did. And so then Wayne was just then like searching the backyard, or in different ways to try to find the kids. And at one point, like he was on crutches, like trying to search for the kids with like binoculars, and then he like accidentally ended up like turning the sprinkler on, and yeah, like Ron and Amy were together at a point, and then Nick and Russ were still together, like they were searching for each other, and then like with the sprinkler on, then like there were just water drops coming down through the yard, and then eventually they found each other again, but then like a drop like hit Amy and caused her to fall into a big thing of mud. And then yeah, Russ then just like used a leaf to like slide into the mud to find Amy, and then he eventually recovered her, and then he revived her by giving her mouth to mouth. Yeah. And then it showed like Wayne like made the thing to try to find the kids. It was like a sling, and he like hovered himself over the grass to search for the kids. Yeah. And then like with like the Thompsons like still like unable to find Russ and Ron, they basically were forced to cancel their fishing trip, and like Big Russ like had an $80 deposit that he put down on this trip, and by being not being able to attend the trip, he lost that deposit, and yeah, he was like really angry about that at first, yeah. And then like as like Nick was like asking Russ like where he learned to revive like that, Russ like told him that he learned it from French class, and yeah, Nick really didn't understand what it really meant and stuff, yeah. And then, as the kids were continuing to journey to the house, they then found like a huge oatmeal cream pie that they were eating, but then they saw that there was also an ant scouting it. And they were running at first, but Nick then brought up that they could just ride the ant and to get back to the house since ants could really lift themselves. And then they were eventually able to tame the ant, and then they were able to ride it to the ride it along through the yard. And then Diane eventually arrived back home, and the kids still weren't there, and so apparently, like both Diane and the Thompsons reported their missing kids to the police. You see, but then like Wayne then like showed Diane his shrunken couch, and then that's when basically telling Diane the machine works. But he also like told Diane that the kids were shrunk, and Wayne also said that the Thompson kids were shrunk too. How he figured out that the Thompson kids were shrunk, I don't know. They never actually show anything with Wayne learning that the Thompson kids were shrunk, so yeah, I don't know how he figured that out, but whatever. Yeah. And then eventually, after like it was kind of getting late, then the kids then just decided to set Auntie free, but Auntie still wanted to stay with Ron, and he just kept following him as if he were Ron's pet. Yeah. And then later that night, as Diane and Wayne were continuing to search for the kids on Wayne's sling, Big Russ was then just like snuck outside to smoke a cigarette, and then he saw what they were doing, and then he just flicked the cigarette into their yard. Yeah. And then the kids then found the cigarette, and then they decided to make like lanterns out of it with some sticks that they then like stuck the end to the cigarette, which was actually kind of a cool idea. Yeah. And then Wayne and Diane just finally decided that they had to tell the Thompsons what happened. And so Wayne was like explaining what happened to the kids and what went on with the machine to the Thompsons, but Big Russ really didn't really believe Wayne at first. He just felt Wayne was going nuts, and then he basically just threatened Wayne with an air hammer that he had in his attic. Yeah. But then, like, once the Thompsons were back home, they then decided to just turn on their back porch light just in case and stuff. And then as the kids were continuing to journey through the yard, they then found a Lego of Nick's in the back, and then they decided to sleep in that. Yeah. Yeah. And then, like, there was a small thing with just, like, Wayne and Diane talking to each other, and Diane was just saying that they had to get the family back together. Yeah, like what I was talking about earlier with, like, the stuff with, like, their family, like, breaking apart and stuff, yeah. And then, like in the Lego, like, Amy and Russ were just like talking to each other, like kind of a heartfelt conversation about how they feel for each other and stuff. Yeah, this is just like them like slowly like falling in love with each other and stuff. Yeah, and then they eventually end up kissing, but then like a scorpion then arrived at the Lego, and then yeah, the kids then of course like were running away from the scorpion, but like Ron ended up being cornered by the scorpion inside the Lego, and then Russ was able to fend off the scorpion by throwing one of the lanterns at the scorpion to like get it distracted for a minute. They'll let Ron get out, but then yeah, Auntie also then arrived and then fought with the scorpion, and then eventually the scorpion then just grabbed Auntie and then just got Auntie with his stinger. But then the kids then all then teamed up to send the scorpion off. They just like were nailing the scorpion with a bunch of rocks and sticks and stuff, and then eventually the scorpion just ended up leaving. And then they saw that Auntie was really hurt, and then yeah, eventually Auntie just ended up dying, which ended up like crushing Ron. And then the next morning, Tommy then arrived back to mow the lawn, and then as he was beginning to mow the lawn, like the ground was starting to rumble a bit, and then it seemed like an earthquake at but then like Nick realized it was the lawnmower, and then they eventually like just ran into an earthworm burrow for shelter, and as Wayne and Diane eventually like saw Tommy was mowing the lawn, and then they just ended up stopping him. And then, like, the kids then, like, because the lawnmower just stopped right where the burrow was, the kids ended up just being blown out of the burrow, but yeah, they just, like, ended up barely missing the mower's blades, yeah. And then it just showed them like they were just right under Wayne and Diane, and they tried to call for them, but once again, Wayne and Diane didn't hear them. Yeah. Then eventually it then showed Cork then arrived, and then like he could sniff them out, and then yeah, the kids just ended up grabbing onto Cork, and then yeah, Amy just told Cork to go inside beside Wayne, and then he did, and then like eventually then as Cork was just like right beside Wayne, Nick ended up like falling off Cork and falling right into Wayne's bowl of Cheerios he was eating. Yeah, and then it showed like Wayne was eating his Cheerios, and yeah, there were a bunch of sudden like really barely missing like barely missing of scooping up Nick, but eventually like Nick ended up being scooped up, and as Wayne was about to eat Nick, Cork then just ended up biting Wayne's leg, stopping him from eating Nick, and then yeah, then like Wayne and Diane then discovered Nick and the spoon, and then they also ended up finding the others, and then yeah, they then got the Thompsons back, and then Wayne was trying to show the Thompsons his machine, but it, of course once again ended up like exploding an apple, and then like Nick and the others then like then just like were able to let the others know that uh, the baseball was what made the machine work, and then that's when Wayne put it all together how the ball got in the path of the laser, and then that was what caused the machine to work. Yeah. Yeah, but before they actually did unshrink the kids, Big Russ wanted the machine to be tested out on something that was living, and so he volunteered himself oh, to be shrunk, and then yeah, Wayne tested the machine on Big Russ, and yeah, it ended up working. But then once he was unshrunk, it turned out that it might have not have like fully worked because yeah, Big Russ's hat like ended up like not fitting him anymore. But yeah, it could have been because like May, his wife, just like took out the box of cigarettes he had in his hat, so maybe that was why it didn't fit. Yeah, it's never like clear like why it didn't fit anymore, but yeah. And then after that, then the kids ended up like being unshrunk and restored to their sizes again. Yeah, and then afterwards, then the families then were like became close with each other and they were friends and stuff. You know, Big Russ reached out to Wayne for a handshake, and yeah, and they shook hands, and then yeah, then cut to like a sometime later. I guess it's like during Thanksgiving. Yeah, just showed the Thompsons and Selinskys were celebrating Thanksgiving together for dinner. Yeah, and it showed like they had a huge, really giant turkey on the table and stuff. Yeah, and yeah, then like showed that Amy and Russ were now dating and stuff, yeah, and it also showed how Cork was also eating from a large bone, yeah. And before it actually cut to credits, and then showed that Nick finally got the French class joke and was laughing about it, and then yeah, that's how the movie ended. So yeah, 3.5 stars out of 4. I mean, it is a really good movie. I mean, it really is a really enjoyable one to watch. It has a lot of good acting, a lot of good scenes, yeah, yeah, and some good humor to it, yeah. Like I said, there are some scenes that are intense, but yeah, kids can still handle it. Because yeah, it's nothing too brutal or anything, it's just intense. Alright, so yeah, definitely, yeah. If you're interested in all this stuff, yeah, you can definitely check it out, because it is a really interesting movie, like basically creating a whole another world. Alright, so yeah, that does it for my review of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And, you know what? I told you guys earlier on that I really was interested in reviewing this film and the sequels. So I I guess like before I actually do continue on with this countdown anymore, before I move on to number 6, I'm gonna review the first sequel to this movie also. So yeah, I'm gonna like take a little break from the countdown. Um, before I get to number 6. And yeah, before I do, I'm going to review the first sequel to this movie. So yeah, that's going to be my next video. I'm going to review the sequel to this movie. So yeah, that'll be my next video. So stay tuned for that coming up next. Alright, so because yeah, like I told you, I really have wanted to review these movies for a while. And yeah, since I've just reviewed this movie, I really would like to do the sequel also. So yeah, I'm going to review the first sequel to this movie up next. So yeah, that'll be coming before I continue on with this countdown, so stay tuned for that coming up. Alright, but anyway, alright, well, that's just from a review of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.